like $8 billion worth of bond money LAUSD and LACCD has to use in the next 10 years. Those projects are really big, have gone outside of California. Either is an investment. I think it's an investment in the company's future because without good people, you can't really build. Some recruitment agencies that take like funding or backing. I was self-funded. It's all about like networking and connections, but 95% of people can like find a home where they fit and where the GC fits them. I think it's kind of like dating. You could be the best person, but not the best person for this GC. So both pieces like have to match because like the candidate could be in love with the client, but the client, I mean, it's the same thing as dating. You need two people to agree on it. They don't want to hire someone who's jumped every year because usually it is a predictor. I would say good people know good people. It's a people job, but it's definitely a matchmaker job of where do they fit. There has been like slight ups and downs with COVID, with elections coming up. When you see a specific market sector that more people are in the market, that's always a concern.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fast Track Podcast Show. Today we have Johnny Bennett. Johnny is the CEO of Bennett Group. Johnny, welcome to our show. Thanks for joining. Please introduce yourself, your background, tell us what Bennett Group is all about.
Of course. So like Billy said, my name is Johnny Bennett. I'm the CEO and founder of Bennett Group, which is a construction recruitment agency. So I'm based in Los Angeles and I've lived in the area for 9 years now. And then throughout those 9 years, I've spent that entire time over 3 different companies recruiting construction professionals in the AEC industry, which is very, very broad. And I'm sure people have been reached out by recruiters, probably Billy, many times. And there's a lot of them, but my specific niche is Southern California, LAOC commercial construction. So my clients are 95% general contractors. I do have 2 CMs that I work with and an end user, an owner end user, and then that work in LA and Orange County. And so I'll recruit usually more construction-based roles. So supers, PMs, PEs, estimators. I sometimes do one-off roles like contract admin, accounting, technology, but I do own my own business. And I think it's about a year mark. I started it last June, 2024. So that's 1 year down.
Awesome. Congratulations on that. We both know that entrepreneurship can be tough and rough, but it's all worth it. So why recruitment? You mentioned that you have had some experience in the past with recruitment, and then you decided there was an opportunity for you to branch out and do this on your own.
Yeah, so I actually didn't know what recruitment was until senior year of college. I went to UNC Chapel Hill and was a comms major, very broad. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Did some miscellaneous internships that I loved, but I wasn't in love with. And actually, I got recruited to work at a recruitment agency. So someone actually reached out to me senior year of college and was like, I'm a recruiter. We're looking for recruiters. And I actually still am friends with this person. I was like, what is a recruiter? Because some people do put it together with HR. And I think years and years ago was a similar job, but now I view HR and recruitment as very different and I can break that down. So I went to work at Michael Page, which is a very large recruitment agency. It's based out of the UK, but they have operations in California. And I did commercial construction recruitment there. I helped revamp their team a little bit. It was a great team, but for the industry at the time, it wasn't really performing. So they revamped it, did some move around reorg, and then I started that team. So I did 3 years there, and I think it was really good training. That company is publicly traded. It's thousands of employees. They have employees in China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, every European country, but it's definitely very big. And then, like I said, I did the same thing there, but after 3 years with them, it was very repetitive. And so I actually got recruited to go to work with one of my general contractor clients. So it was Delamo Construction, which is a great company. They're based out of Torrance. And I have friends, and actually I was on the phone with an ex-colleague earlier today, and I had recruited for them when I was at Michael Page, and then they brought me in-house. Usually in-house recruiters are called talent acquisitions or talent acquisition specialist or manager or just plain recruiter. So they brought me in-house to basically just focus on them and hire, because it is definitely, hiring a lot is very costly. Recruitment firms like work on a contingent fee that I can, if you're curious, I can step you through. But and I did that for 4.5 years. And usually it was hiring construction people like I said, but again, there was a miscellaneous role of, admin, front office, accounting,
Mhm.
technology, but 95% of my roles were like super PM, PXs. And then I did some of their college recruitment at the CM schools and CE schools. And then I also revamped their internship program. But it was nice. It is a big difference being out of house and agency is the term, which is in recruitment agency versus in house, because you form, I would say, a lot closer relationship. And I would say like no one that knew Delamo at the recruitment level better than I did.
Mhm.
And then I left Delamo after 4.5 years last year, so 2024, took some time off and then started my own business. I had three different routes when I was thinking about what I wanted to do. I could go back to an agency, a big one, which didn't really make sense to go basically like give other people the money. I could have gone in-house again, but those positions are a little more limited. Or I could have started my own company, which I thought about during the transition from Michael Page to Delamo. But I was young, not ready, which I'm really happy I didn't do at that time because I feel much more confident now, and I feel like a lot of people know me from those Delamo days. So yeah, last early June, just started on. I did
Mhm.
talk with people, like my dad started his own business, but that was many years ago, and that was North Carolina. I had networked with friends, but it's definitely like a lot of Googling, YouTube about how to figure it out. And then now I am a solo person, so I don't have anyone that I employ. So all the business is done with me. I don't outsource anyone to different countries or anything like that. So all my clients and candidates deal with me directly in this space.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for giving us a detailed breakout of your background there. And congratulations. I mean, I hear that's a huge success, right? There's a lot of loops and blockages and challenges through the road of entrepreneurship, like I mentioned.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, but I like it because I learned how to change my registered agent last month and like how to go about that. And so I like kind of figuring out those pieces. I think it's good for a resume or just good for skill building.
Yeah, sounds like you're a natural problem solver. Uh, so, help the audience here um, help us understand a little bit more if they're wondering what the difference is with going through a recruiter
Mhm.
through an agency versus an in-house again. Just like, if I
Yeah.
were a company that wanted to find someone that can help me recruit better talent, who should I go for? Should I find someone that's, to hire on in-house, or should I go through a company like Bennett Group?
Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons with both. And I would say it's very rare to have someone who's gone. Usually, when people go do the in house side, they stay forever. So there are pros and cons of both. If I was a GC and I hired someone in house, they're really going to be only focused on you, which is a huge pro. And they're going to have direct access. They're going to be probably in the office, a very close relationship. They probably can, when I was at Delama, I could speak firsthand about the culture rather than this is what they tell me their culture is. The cons of having someone in-house, and that's a trend I'll discuss, but having someone in-house is you have to pay them health insurance, PTO. Okay, I don't get any of that from my clients, and I work on a contingent basis. So if you have someone in-house, you're going to be paying them a check no matter if they're hiring or not. Hopefully they're doing a good job, they're hiring, but there are slow periods. It was interesting. Always the 4.5 years I was at Delamo, the slow periods were always around August, September, which honestly, like, if it was any longer, I would get nervous, but it was a nice time to like catch up, start the intern recruitment process because that's when interns and college career fairs, but there are slow, things. So when I was in talent acquisition in-house, you never want to too slow a period because like a or project manager, it's, am I going to be employed next month? So definitely some pros of being in-house. Like no one's going to know the company better. You're like the only person. When I was at Delamo, I wouldn't help recruit for Suffolk or Skanska or Hensel Phelps. But I was just Delamo. The pros of hiring outside is you don't pay unless they find you someone. Although there are retained and contingent models, most companies in the GC world work on a contingent model. So I've had hires that I've hired in 1 week, which have been a quick fee, which have been great. But then I have a role right now that I've been working on 9 months and I haven't been paid.
Mhm.
And, that is what it is. So that would be the thing. You don't have to pay them the 401k, the PTO. But I think as an outside recruiter, since I've experienced both, I would say outside recruiters have a much more, I would say, pulse on the market sectors and how the market's doing. I did feel I lost a little bit about that when I was at Delama because although I was speaking with candidates from all these different GCs, I wasn't speaking with like their leaders, their presidents, executives. I was
Right.
speaking with the supers and PMs, which obviously is great, but it wasn't like big picture. So I would say from starting my own business, I think I have a much better understanding of like where the market is and like what's good, what's not good or bad, but market sectors are better than others. But I don't think you can go wrong, but either is an investment. I think it's an investment in the company's future because without really good people, you can't really build. And the people are reflections. So like thinking of the people I've hired at GCs, like I don't know, if you're a builder, if you're a superintendent project manager, which I talk to on a daily basis, like it's really sweet to hear them be like, oh, I built that, or I drive my kids past that project. Like I don't have that because I don't build anything. But what I do is like I have the people and it's a reflection on me, which is a,
Right.
it's a scary reflection. But if I hired you, Billy, at a company like, like if you do really bad, hopefully you won't, but it's a reflection of me. So it's definitely like, yeah, I don't know. I'd say there's a higher bar. There are contingencies in the contract, but yeah, those would be like my overall pros and cons about in-house versus out-house if you're a recruiter or a company. Usually the larger GCs have in-house recruitment teams like Suffolk, Shawmut, Skanska. They all have like recruitment teams that are in-house and they'll only use recruiters if it's a hard to fill role or if they need extra help. Usually the small to mid-level size GCs don't have those like big staff to help them out. Same as like tech companies. Like Facebook has hundreds of recruiters. It's
Right.
insane. But
Right.
a startup tech company is going to use a recruitment agency to help them.
Right. Right. Makes sense. No, that's great insight. Now, it sounds like you've had so much experience in both worlds,
Mhm.
right? The agencies and also in-house. How, so at this point, it sounds like you're an expert at identifying qualified construction individuals and matching them with the right company. Like what's the magic formula to create not only a match, but like a successful match, right? Meaning like the signed employee is retained with the match employee and they're both happy. That employee ends up staying with them for years. Like there's gotta be a secret sauce to it, right? Like what is
I
that?
wish, but there's not. And this is probably,
Okay.
this is what I tell my clients. And this is the hardest thing because I think it's kind of like dating. You could be the best person, but not the best person for this GC. So my philosophy, I think there's a fit for 95% of the people. I know there's like that bottom five that are just going to turn over, not good anywhere. But 95% of the people can like find a home where they fit and where the GC fits them. But this is where I even struggle with. And if there's a listener or you, Billy, know like the secret formula, I would love to because I've seen people jump every year, then they get hired, and then they stay 13 years and they're the best employee. And I have one of those employees in mind at Delamo where they jumped every year and then they've been at Delamo for a very long time and they're great. But then I see people be employed a long stint. So it's tenure can be a factor. It's definitely something I consider. And my clients, I get it. They don't want to hire someone who's jumped every year because usually it is a predictor. But I've also hired people with the most awful resumes. And then I have a candidate from Swinnerton 2 years ago who comes to mind and he had a bad resume, but he was such a great person
Mm.
and a great candidate. But I've hired people who have the worst or the best resumes that are worse people. So there's really no secret sauce. I feel like it is I would say a lot of networking. I would say good people know good people. So like I have a connection. Some of my clients are HKI, Oshpod, and they're hiring right now. And I have a connection at Hogue and their CM department. And I called him yesterday. So it is very referral based. I think 60% of my hires in 2024 were referrals. But I wish so much it was like, hey, if they have this year's, if they live in this location, they're going to be good. But I see people go to direct competitors and be bad, or people with like the perfect resume. I would love to figure that out, but I'm definitely still struggling with that, even 8, 9 years in, because it's interesting because I've had a P interview with the GC and they didn't like her. They wanted to pass. And then I've had her interview with another GC and they loved her. They wanted offered. They thought she was a superstar. So it's like, it's the same person. She didn't change. So it's very dependent on like what they're looking for. So you have to take that into account, what the GCs really want, and then digesting that, understanding it. Because you could have two companies that do the exact same thing, but they're looking for someone different.
Yeah, it's really a people business, isn't it? And like seeing where it
Yeah.
can really fit you're kind of playing matchmaker, right? And seeing, okay,
I,
where does this
yeah.
person fit into this, which company that has a certain kind of culture, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I view it
Go
as a
ahead.
matchmaker because job in a sense, because it's obviously, I think it's 25% research. I don't think a lot of recruitment agencies view it as a research job, but I view it as like a, a top, I would say 10 to 25% a research job. I view, and then it's a people job, but it's definitely a matchmaker job of like, where do they fit and what are the GC looking for? And both pieces like have to match because like the candidate could be in love with the client, but the client, I mean, it's the same thing as dating. Like, you need two people to agree on it.
Yeah, takes two hands to clap. Um, so let's talk about Bennett Group real quick. So how's that going? What's been working well for Bennett Group? Where are you guys looking to be in the foreseeable future?
The first year was really good. I would say surprisingly good. I expected a higher, a few people in the first year. There's some recruitment agencies that take like funding or backing. I was self-funded, but it was a pretty good year. I have 24 clients signed. Obviously, not all of them are like hiring at the same time, but I usually work with like five companies at the same time that hire. And that list does obviously shift, but it was a great first year. Obviously, there were some learning curves about contract and negotiations and legal terms, but it's been really good. I will say what specifically made me successful the last year was referrals. I know a lot of, and I did this at the beginning, so like I think everyone has to start off, but like at the very beginning of my career 8 years ago, it was cold calls, cold emails, hoping for a response, following up a bunch. All but one of my current clientele out of that 23, 24 list has been through referrals. So one was like I got a GC signed on that was a cold email, cold outreach, which was great. So I think it still works, but it's all about like networking and connections. So like I got one client through a sub referral. A lot of actually my clients now are past candidates where they've referred me to like their boss, or they have their own GC now, or I work with a small GC now where their general superintendent is someone I placed 8 years ago at a large GC, and he ended up moving, and then he's in a position to hire now. So I think it all circles back. A lot of recruitment is very long term. Like you'll speak with someone like 5 years ago and it will circle back. It's not like instant gratification, but it is very referral heavy, especially since there's so many recruitment agencies out there, even the ones that specifically do construction. So there is a lot of competition, but the referrals have really like made my last year. And even if it's just like being friendly over LinkedIn, I have a client now, like she was never a candidate, and but I always just was like friendly over with her LinkedIn, like, talking, chatting casually. And then she referred me over to her manager who was hiring. So it's definitely like, which is scary because, like, what if I do a bad job? That relationship could go down the drain. But that's definitely been what's made the last year more successful.
I think you mentioned it was 60% most of your current clientele are based off referrals at this moment.
Yeah, so 60% of my hires in 2024 were through referrals as well. So it's referral on the candidate side. And I would say like 95% of my clientele have been referrals.
Gotcha. So 95 on the clientele and then 60% on the customers or candidate side.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And how do you see yourself or Bennett Group growing at this point? Sounds like you've done a great job in setting up a great foundation, had a really successful first year. What's next? How do you grow from there on?
Yeah, it's a challenge to grow because I want to keep like that level of service there because I like being in control of everything. I like it's just me, like no there's no one else to talk to. And it is also a level like expectation. Like if something like, when I was at a major recruitment agency, Michael Page, you could be like, oh, my boss doesn't want me to sign that contract. And that could be true or it could be an excuse. But now it's really only me. I probably would want to hire someone underneath my belt in the next year. I am not in a rush to do that because I'm very selective about who I hire. Then also about like I feel unfortunately, a lot of the information is in my mind. I could look through LinkedIn and be like, oh, I talked to them. I do think I have a good memory. I've talked to them 5 years ago. Or, they told me they never wanted to be contacted again. Or I met them at an event and I actually have their cell, so I don't have to reach out. But I would most likely in the next year hire a sourcer, which is basically someone to do like research and message people. That's more on the admin side. And unfortunately, that does take a lot of my time. But it's be someone that be very like selective about it. But that's, I'm on the phone most of the days, but to get on the phone, I need pre-planned calls. So those always start at like the sourcing level of reaching out to people or networking through referrals or, events. So that would be what I would want to grow to. I do always want to get better. Like I'm very big, especially like it's still a really good economy in LA construction. So I have the numbers I did last year. I have the numbers I've done this year. So I do want to like make sure I'm beating that and I don't want to match it. I want to beat it. And I've stayed very organized on like the Excel, the docs, like everything. Because I think it is quality as well and like who stays. And as I get busier, I'm like, okay, I don't want to lose the quality, which at times, like to be very honest, I'm like, shoot, okay, I'm doing too much because I think I have a personal limit of if I interview more than 5 people a day, they all blur together for me. And I sometimes do 8 a day and I can do it, but I don't think it's good because then I'm like, I take notes. So I'm like, it all starts to blur together. So I have like a max, but I definitely do want to grow in terms of like number of placements I make, revenue I make, and then hiring someone under me to do basically the admin, reach out over LinkedIn.
So the reaching out is in like reaching out to potential clients, or are you talking about reaching out to candidates?
I would probably put that person just on the candidate side because knowing what's been successful for me, which has been the referrals, I wouldn't want to put that person like, even though if they were very confident, yeah, because so it would be on the candidate side. So it would be reaching out to people like via LinkedIn or honestly like making lists. Like I spent 4 hours this morning, which is needed, but it's, it is very boring, to be very honest, going through candidate profiles, looking at LinkedIn's, and I probably have another 4 hours to do tonight of like because I have a new role on with a GC for a superintendent, and I know I can find it, but it's like a lot of legwork and like to be like, okay, like who do I know and keeping track of everything. So that would be like someone to make a list, to keep me more organized, and like reach out via LinkedIn to new candidates.
Right. I did want to touch on the economy you said real quick. So you're saying that the industry is good in LA at least, right? Is that the kind of the current trends right now? And are you focused only on the LAOC area?
So I have two clients that are national, that do work outside of LAOC. So I work with them for outside, but I would say my 8 years plus now is 95% LAOC. And honestly, out of 10 roles, I'll work one in OC. And OC has never really taken off for me. I don't know if that's a me thing or if that's just, I know there is more construction in LA. I'm sure you could find great recruiters that have so much work in OC, but LA is just like so much busier. So I would say I'm like 95% LA and OC focused, definitely more on the LA side. And then I have two national GCs who I work with in Southern California, but they utilize me for local and traveling roles. But I mean, I wasn't in construction recruitment when 2008 hit, and I know that took a long time to recover. I've, knock on wood, been very fortunate. There has been like slight ups and downs with COVID, with elections coming up, but nothing like significant. The last 8 years have been like really strong. There are some markets that are better than others or market sectors, but it has been really strong. I really can't talk about like the Denver market or the
Yeah,
Mississippi market, but
yeah.
LA is I've been very fortunate. The LA market's still great.
Yeah, and you touched on something that I was going to point out too about COVID, right? Because when I was experiencing kind of my experience in the construction industry, the commercial market took a really big hit back when the pandemic happened, right?
Yeah.
Everything was shut down. Then you plug in all the supply chain issues, which impacted the projects even further. It just caused this whole snowball effect, and everyone was like, "Where is this going?" Everyone was fearing. All the leaders that I was talking to were really fearing that, and everyone was working from home for that matter, right? Like there was a whole transition. I mean, we're all working from home nowadays, so less of a need to build out TI projects. But it seems like since then, the industry and the market's really picked back up.
Yeah, yeah. There's still So I do commercial construction recruitment. So I don't do anything multifamily or civil infrastructure. Those are niches could do it, but I have less of a connection there. It'd be the same process. But within commercial is so broad. I always like to kind of define like what I specialize in. So my market sectors that I have like GC partners in are HCI, Oshpod, healthcare work, industrial. That would be like not the piping, but that would be more of like Amazon or logistics centers.
Uh-huh.
And then religious work, restaurant, retail, office space, higher education, K through 12, aerospace, office TI. So I have seen obviously like office TI pre-pandemic was crazy. That's actually how I made like I would say a good amount of my hires. It was like a fantastic time. There was so much renovations. Obviously that was killed during COVID. So when I was at Michael Page, Office TIs was like I would say like 80% of my business. It was
Yeah.
great. I knew like all the I probably represented like half those companies. And I moved to Delamo pre-COVID. Delamo's doesn't do any Office TIs, so that didn't actually affect me. Obviously, they were affected in other ways, but I have seen Office TIs come back a little bit. I don't think it will get to like the craziness as was before pre-COVID. Unfortunately, like I love working from home. I work from home, but for just the economy and the business, I'm like, people need to go back. Maybe not me, but people need to go back. But yeah, so that's still, not great. That's not 100% back. Multifamily, I don't do multifamily construction recruitment, but I think when you see a specific market sector that's more people are in the market, that's always a concern. So like the people right now that are not on the market are like the DSA, the K through 12, the HCI, OSHPA people. Those are like the strongest markets in my opinion. But I would say more office TI multifamily on the market. I can't really speak to like, oh, I don't have GCs that do multifamily, so I can't really speak to that, what the leaders
Hmm.
are saying. But I do see more resumes that come to me, and usually commercial people want commercial construction people. So I usually don't help those people, unfortunately. But I have seen that not take a bad hit, like an awful hit, but I have seen it take a hit. So I think I always like to say like the construction market in LA is great, but there's definitely like some market sectors that are like amazing and then some market sectors that are okay, but not the best.
And what are those markets? How would you rank those based off your
I
insights?
would say top, and this is my personal opinion, so top would be HCI Oshpod. Hospital construction seems really great right now. I have three clients in that. And that could be anywhere from building a new hospital tower to a renovation project. So that doesn't have to be these massive projects. Another thing would be DSA and K through 12. Forget the stat, but it's like $8 billion worth of bond money LAUSD and LACCD has to use in the next 10 years. So that's already allocated, it's already set aside. It's not interest rate driven from what I understand. So I work with a couple K through 12 GCs that will build schools and there's whole new campuses. I mean, I think that's a great thing to invest in. Like obviously people are always going to go to school and also always need a hospital. I know like obviously I'm scared about AI, but I think that those will be safe. We'll see. So those are two really good. I would say in the middle would be the restaurant retail side, and then the probably bottom would be the office TI side. I don't know too much about like aerospace or trying to think of like or industrial work. I will say industrial work because those projects are really big have gone outside of California. So industrial, mission critical data centers, logistics centers, those big distribution centers, they're in LA, but they're not like those require so much land. So there's a couple major GCs, some that I am partnered with, some that I have not partnered with, but I know are stationed in California, but will travel their PMs, their supers, everyone, because no one's building a data center in the middle of downtown LA. So I would say that's a pretty good market. I don't have any clients that do data center work. That's another growth area. That's definitely something I would like to get into because it's, they're categorizing it mission critical. It's very
Yep.
important,
Yep.
but that's something I don't do that I think, but I would say that's pretty high just outside of California right now.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. No, that's, I think these are all very important things to take into account if I were a candidate and I wanted to get into a certain market, right? If I was listening to this and I'm trying to get into the construction industry, whether that's being a PE or I'm already a PM and I want to pivot or being a super, it's all really good insight to see, okay, based off this recruiter sample from Bennett Group, they're really seeing that there's a trend in the entrepreneur market. That's probably where the money is, or LUSD, and like that gives people sort of some level of security or assurance, knowing that they're going to be in an industry where it's going to stay around for a while, right? Versus like the folks, you don't want to be in a position where the folks were in TI forever and now they're like, what do
No,
I do
yeah.
now? Right.
And
So,
I give this, I was on the phone call with a PE candidate who was like 1 or 2 years out of her career a couple hours ago. And I told her, like, get as much different market experience as you can because I think it is really unfair, but GCs want what they do. So, like, for instance, I'm hiring right now for a GC that does airport and Amazon work, and that's all they want to see out of a resume. I'm sure other people could build it, but I think you want to get as many different projects underneath your belt as possible. And she was like, yeah, like I said, a year or two into her career, but you want to get as many because if one market sector takes a dip, oh, I've already done this project, I can go there. I think being specialized definitely has its pros, but being too specialized always makes me like a little scared. But there, of course, you can be specialized and have a great career. But I think it's like the best resumes I've seen have done a little bit of everything within their market sector. So they're more marketable. Like if I can send them multiple GCs rather than just one GC, and you're kind of expanding what you can do or what, companies think you can do.
no, absolutely. I think, at the end of the day, if you know how to read plans, if you're a superintendent, for example, you know how to read
Yeah.
plans, you know how to build. It's the usually when you're on the field and you're doing the means and methods, that's when the experience goes into play, right? They're like, oh,
Yeah.
actually, this guy is thinking outside the box, or if they have like some management or some PM skills under their belt, they can maybe transition as well. So no, this is really, really awesome. Yeah, so thanks again for joining today, Johnny. If people, were listening to this, wanted to find you online, where can they reach you?
So LinkedIn is the best way for me. That's honestly what I'm on all day, probably more than email. But you could search Johnny Bennett or Bennett Group on LinkedIn. I have a company profile that leads to me or me, but I say probably my personal profile has more followers and connections, so I'm on that more than my company profile as I'm building that out. Or my email is jbennett@bennettgroup.us. So not .com, .us, it will come to me. But those are the best ways. But I'm literally like, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I usually post 95 or if not all my jobs. So if you want to follow me, you'll get those posts. But usually when I get like a job on, like I did yesterday, I posted on LinkedIn. I think it's a good way to like, see if anyone's interested. I've made hires just from one post. But yeah, LinkedIn would be the best way to follow me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Johnny, for joining, and we'll chat with you soon.
Thank you so much.